Barbara Ryan, pharmaceutical analyst at Deutsche Bank, and welcome to Pharma Face Off. Joining me today to discuss the challenges of marketing in the social media world are Bruce Grant, Senior Vice President, Strategic Services, Digitus Health, Jenny Colpietro, Partner Pharma and Life Sciences Practice at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Michael Sanson, Partner and Chief Creative Officer at Concentric Pharma Advertising. When we think about social media and pharma, many people blame the lack of progress or engagement by pharma on FDA. Is that fair?
It's convenient. The lack of regulatory certainty certainly is a factor in many areas of our industry. However, if you look at the adoption of social media in other industries, which typically precede pharma in most things by 3 to 5 years, you'll see they had the same hesitation, even industries that were not highly regulated. The main hesitancy that industries have had in engaging with social media have to do with the uncertainty of operating in a world in which marketers are no longer in sole control of the conversation, not especially regulatory issues.
I certainly agree. I think that the interactive multimedia marketing and this whole concept of fair and balanced and on-label promotion is certainly an area of scrutiny for the FDA recently. But the FDA is also trying to understand and embrace social media, even with their own website and tactics and concept of transparency with their customers. And it appears to be used more as an excuse for pharma and biotechs to move forward in this area. And in actuality, you usually find more internal barriers than you do the external barriers. Frankly, the guidance that will likely come down from the FDA following the November hearings are just going to be guidelines and parameters and provisions, but the rubber really hits the road in your individual interpretations and actually operationalizing those within your organization.
So Michael, when you go to your clients, I mean, how do you convince them that they need to do this, and how do you advise that they go about it?
I think the reality is we do know what the rules are, and I think the letters that we've seen haven't really surprised us. You know, you can't overstate your benefits, you can't minimize your risks, and the realities are that a lot of these formats, Twitter, Facebook, make it a little bit difficult to do that and are also a little bit unusual from a medical, legal, regulatory standpoint for our clients. So really you just have to play by the rules that we've always played by. You have to find a format that works. In many cases, you have to find something to talk about that's not necessarily your brand specifically, but maybe some services around your brand or some education. There are a lot of ways to engage your customer that are relevant to the brand, but it is a little bit tricky to talk about the products that we sell because they are heavily regulated.
And just to be fair, trying to convince the client that they should be in social media is so 2009. So what we've observed across the industry is this is the year that every brand manager has gotten a checkbox on their scorecard called "Do Something Social." More often the discussion we're having is a Facebook page the right thing to do? Is a Twitter account the right thing to do? What's meaningful and appropriate for your brand? Not should you be doing it?
And so many are so anxious to jump into the social media arena that I think they're doing more one-off campaigns, and as a result, they're not truly taking a step back and understanding the advantages that this new channel would offer relative to collaboration with healthcare providers and communities and patients, and the insight that they can derive in creating more of a holistic program.
What about the risk of, pharma usually sends out a message, they tape a commercial. But if you put up a site, you have a commitment and obligation to a conversation.
I think user-generated content is what makes the internet so interesting, but I think it's also what scares us because of exactly what you said. I mean, we're used to fine-tuning our message, running it through regulatory, spending a couple of months on it, and then putting it out there. That's just not interesting and engaging to people anymore. So we have to find ways to have a two-way conversation, to open it up and allow the user to control the conversation to a certain degree. And that's difficult when you're talking about a brand. But again, I think there are a lot of services that we can provide around our products. If you think about the Mac store and what they do, they bring people in and teach them how to use their products and services. They're training these professionals. And I think we can do the same thing. We can provide that and allow them to talk to us.
And frankly, this is a problem that's not limited to pharma. No marketer is comfortable at first having a conversation with their customers rather than a monologue. 4 years ago on the cover of Forbes, in the November of 2006, was a cover showing a big fist coming out of a computer hitting apparently a brand manager on the chin, and the headline was, "Those terrible blogs, they destroy brands and wreck lives, how can we fight back?" Marketers in other industries have figured out in the meantime, A, we can't, B, there's probably some value to be gained from engaging with our customers, but the conversation is not a natural instinct for a marketer, it's learned behavior, and it's now pharma's turn to learn how to do that.
And how does the industry deal with their sales force in this regard? What about a sales rep who puts up their own Facebook page, and then that gets identified with the company and the brand?
I think most at this point have issued some internal guidance relative to employee usage of social media and the different channels, and they're trying to employ tactics that way. But I think looking at sales reps, it's really helping them to understand that this is just yet another channel of interaction, and to supplement their current efforts, and ultimately to help support their efforts, and not to circumvent them or disintermediate the relationship that they have with the healthcare professionals. So I think if pharma kind of takes as a first step listening and gaining some customer insight on what their preferred channels are and their interest and insights and wants and desires, and can somehow feed that back to reps, it'll help to help them embrace this new channel that's not necessarily face-to-face.
Is this an opportunity, for pharma to identify itself more with patient care rather than around brands? And are they behaving with that in mind?
I think it is an opportunity for that. There are a lot of good sites out there for education. We talked about this earlier. I think if we can create services and education that really complement the products that we deliver and help people manage their conditions and to take our products properly, that's a real big opportunity to really create a relationship with someone and I think solve the big compliance problem that we've been trying to solve for so many years.
And frankly, that may be the only way to get the end consumers and physicians interested in having a discussion or allowing kind of pharma to play in this space, because up to this point, it is used as its most utilized tool for everybody to seek information around healthcare prevention and treatment, but they're not likely to go to brand-specific sites or pharma-sponsored sites. So providing some additional services and giving back and listening and responding to their needs will help to cultivate that.
Josh Bernoff and Charlene Lee in their book, The Groundswell, say that social media, social technologies represent primarily a trend in which people use technologies to get the things they need from each other rather than from large institutions. And it's helpful in this context to think of social media not as a channel, which as marketers we're accustomed to thinking, but as a conversation. It's a big conversation. It's a conversation that in some conditions among some patient groups has been going on for 25 years or more, going back to before there was an internet for consumers, when people were using private services like CompuServe. And so what's important for marketers in any industry, including pharma, to understand is how can we participate appropriately and how can we bring value to the conversation? And the first step in doing that is to listen. We often tell clients, imagine it's your first day of high school and you're the new kid in school and you walk onto campus and there's a big conversation happening and you can tell right off they're the cool kids. And you want to be part of that conversation. What do? Well, we all know, either instinctively because we have innate social intelligence or like me, we've learned the hard way, that it's not a good idea to walk up to the conversation, interrupt them, start talking about yourself and asking everybody if they'd like to become your fans. The intelligent thing that people do is they listen. Who are these people? What are they talking about? What are they interested in? What are they concerned about? And then as you listen, you begin to discover maybe there's some things that you can contribute. There's some knowledge you have or there's some resources you have that add some value to the conversation. And that's your first step into it. Not hey, listen to me, but I've got this thing that's relevant to you. And that's how you earn the right, ultimately, to participate in a conversation and to have a voice, a promotional voice for your brand in the conversation, is by listening deeply and then by responding to the needs that are in the conversation that was already going on before you got there.
So you're sort of talking about joining a community as opposed to, again, the industry sort of sending out or inflicting, a message on its customer.
I think that's exactly it, and I think the point that both Jenny and Bruce made about listening, that's really the big opportunity. I mean, we're a conservative industry, and engaging in social media takes, I think, one thing more than anything else, which is courage. So those two things contradict each other a little bit, and I think the huge opportunity here is to listen, good and bad, to what's being said about this, allow our customers to keep us honest, and I think what that'll do in turn is to allow us to provide better service back, and that's a perfect cycle for us to begin this conversation, begin our interaction.
So now we're over the hump. Everybody wants to do it. They're just not sure how to do it or what to do. Is there, a difference as to the media that you choose, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, or is it just, again, engaging in the media itself?
No, I always advise clients not to pick a particular thing, and I think the common misperception is that social media is the triumvirate. It's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's YouTube, and that's not what social media is. And so first helping to create some awareness and education around what it is, what are the risks, and how you can use it, and then taking that first step to kind of outline, okay, what are our internal business and strategic needs? Are we going to take this at an enterprise level, at a therapeutic level, at a brand level? Find some targeted niche audiences, find out where they are on social media, and start listening to the information, and then take that insight and then use that to really drive more as a sustainable enterprise-wide program.
Indeed, we know from more than 10 years of listening in our company that the influential conversations among patients tend to happen not in Facebook, Twitter. They started before those vehicles existed, and even today they continue to exist largely in discussion groups, forums, private communities for people with the conditions. So when we advise our clients on listening, that's where we point them, and that's where the deep learnings are to be made. Looking at the established channels, I think the real question is how can we add value to those? And a great example of a company that took a very simple opportunity to add value is AstraZeneca with their AZ Helps Twitter account. This is a lesson lifted from Comcast, who first started trolling Twitter, listening for people having problems with Comcast, and immediately direct messaging them and getting a customer service person to intervene on their behalf to resolve their problem. AstraZeneca now monitors Twitter for anybody mentioning a problem with an AstraZeneca drug, an affordability problem or an access problem, or an adverse event associated with it, and they respond to them. They say, noticed your message about an affordability problem with Nexium. AstraZeneca may be able to help. Call 1-800-that. So it's a very simple thing, not difficult to approve. The messages are all defined and canned and all less than 140 characters, but brings real value. And anybody who gets one of those messages says, hey, somebody's, this is not just a channel for me to fetch, it's a channel where I can get some response from an industry that maybe I didn't trust before this.
Bruce, you're not going to believe this. We just scratched the surface, but we're already out of time. So I want to thank you, Bruce, Jenny, and Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the conversation is not over. I hope you're going to hang around.
Yeah.
And we will continue this dialogue in overtime.
Sounds good.
So Michael, you were talking about
Yeah, you
choosing
mentioned
the right-
Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and we get asked that a lot. Should we use Facebook? Should we use Twitter? And I think the first rule of promotion that we violate all the time is you got to start with your customer and back into your promotional platform. You don't start with a channel. You don't start with your own story. And if you do that, you'll find what makes sense. Sometimes YouTube might make sense. Sometimes Twitter might. Sometimes a call center is better. I know we feel like some of these things are archaic, but I think if you begin with what are the problems that you face on a daily basis, what are the issues that you have when you're taking my product or trying to manage your disease, and you back into what you can really offer, that's where you create engagement, and that's when you solve a problem for them and build a relationship.
And one of the interesting things we're seeing is the use, and when we present best practices to our clients, a lot of the tactics are owned properties, not properties like Facebook or Twitter, but sites owned by the marketers themselves, with social functionality overlaid on them. Gilead does this for their hepatitis B medication. Novartis does this for Gleevec. It's often a way, if you've got a mix of educational and promotional messaging, it's a more appropriate and more accepted venue for those kinds of messages to live. But you can gain the benefit of social propagation by overlaying the functionality. And of course, Facebook now makes that easier with their Facebook social plugin. So you can embed the Facebook like button. You can embed a share this functionality on your properties. And for many brands, that may be an easier and more appropriate and better transition into the world of social media than saying, okay, I'm going to have a Facebook fan page where the proposition that somebody wants to be a fan of any brand is dubious enough.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean, you know, our company, I guess it varies among, but our company is better to focus on this from a disease perspective and move away from sort of the brand, which in some instances, you know, may be tarnished by the view that they're always trying to sell you something.
Yeah, I think, you know, Bruce, you had a great point on this earlier about that you know, was an opportunity we used to have, and that, you know, that platform of talking about disease education and lifestyle management has sort of been taken over and done very well by a lot of the organizations out there, and I personally think that
Managed care, PBMs, things like that.
Well,
And the communities themselves.
right, National MS Foundation.
Right.
Exactly. And so I think the real opportunity here is to build services, you know, around our products that connect the product with the condition. So, you know, help me manage my condition, help me take this product properly, help me get the best results I can, give me feedback on, am I doing well, am I not doing well? You know, that's the kind of information that really helps people, and we can really own that. And that differentiates our brands. It makes our brands more valuable. It helps you understand your disease a little bit better, and no one else can do that but pharma.
There's an opportunity too, I think, especially for companies that have franchises, to bring some value too. One of our favorite examples is Group Loop. Group Loop is a social network for teens with cancer who have very distinct needs that differ from even those of 20 and 30-year-olds with cancer. How do you get a date with no hair? And this is a great site. It is its content. The community is managed by the Wellness Community, a very respected and well-known cancer support organization, but with significant funding from the Amgen Foundation. So you can see that in terms of the production values and the richness of the functionality, the support of industry really showed up there, and they get both a play for Amgen's corporate brand on the site, as well as learnings from the conversations that go on within the community.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of activity out there, and I think that's part of what pharma has to get their handle around. A lot may not think that it's very prevalent, but there's well over in excess 300 social media type of sites dedicated specifically to healthcare pharma. I think you're right, most have focused more from a disease perspective and steered clear of product specific, but I think there are opportunities. And one of the first steps is just to take a step back and take stock of what you are currently doing in this area, and aspirationally what you'd like to do, and just kind of plotting it out. And you'll find that many say, oh, we're not playing in that space, but there are already a lot of departments within your organization that are already listening and mining on the internet, whether it's corporate security or competitive intelligence or legal or R&D. So they're already mining and listening relative to references to your corporation or your brand. And so there may actually already be a lot of infrastructure and processes that you can use as enablers to help pull this more enterprise-wide.
You know, manufacturing historically was never sort of a front burner issue for the CEO's office of pharma till it started to go wrong. Is this a front burner issue with chief executive officers, or is this really in the hallways of the marketing departments?
I think it's becoming much more of an issue. I wouldn't say it's top of mind on their list, but it's very related to what is top of mind for them right now, which is on-label, fair, balanced, appropriate sales and marketing tactics. I mean,
because that has cost them
exactly
money and
because that cost them
reputation
money. Exactly.
And
I mean,
reputation.
you're seeing an increase in the FDA warning letters. You're seeing an increase in the corporate integrity agreements that are hitting the industry, and so that certainly brings it to their attention. And social media is just it's just one other avenue and channel for that to potentially go awry. So although that might not be the topic, it's very related to what's top of mind to them.
Yeah, if the channel is not on CEOs' minds, the conversation certainly is. If I were Bill Weldon today, I would be very, very aware of the conversation about McNeil and Tylenol, and was I ever going to get that value back? And it's a conversation that is nowhere near as controllable or influenceable as it was even 10 years ago, when media relations could take over and could contact a handful of influential reporters and shift the tone of media coverage on an issue. Now, with potentially millions, hundreds of thousands or millions of people talking about your brand, how do you know what they're talking about? How do you appropriately participate in that conversation? How do you protect your reputation in that arena?
Yeah, and I think that the way we have to look at it is they're going to keep us honest. And if we do enough things right, most of those comments are going to be good. They're going to be bad ones, and we have to be willing to accept that. That's the courage piece. But I think that they're going to give us good information for the most part, and we're going to be able to react to that, and over time, we'll get better and better comments. So I think it's a scary concept, but I do think there's a big opportunity in there.